y'all up to talk film, discuss, to critique?
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blood Splatter Chatter. Thank you so much for being here. We got a good show lined up tonight. I'm excited about this. A little bit of a new format. We're doing a double feature here. We got the Hitcher 1986 and the remake from 2007. We're going to be doing a little comparing and contrasting. We got a couple of the homies that you know. It's Mr. Phable.
Hey,
what's going on?
What's going on, brother?
Happy that you could make it, man. Stoked to do this one. And then actually I sent a list out to both you guys, and this is the man right here that said, let's talk about the Hitcher and the Hitcher remake. What is up, brother? Steph in the house.
What's going on, fellas?
Same old. So I think I said it last week, but it bears mentioning again. I had never seen either of these. And I didn't even know there was a remake. Steph, you and I did that Hitcher not Hitcher. We did the remake episode like a month ago.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even see this in the research. I didn't even hear about it. And then watching, it's like I should have been seeing this in the research. I should have been hearing about it. So you'd seen them both. Phable, had you seen either or of these?
No.
Nice, dude.
I've heard of the first one, but I realized I never watched it.
Okay, I think this is one I'd always seen the cover. Like the cover is badass. I almost clicked that on HBO for the past year or two that was on there. And then as soon as we went to review it and then watch it, I'm like, son of a bitch, it's not on HBO anymore. So go searching for it, which by the way, if you're looking for it, it is on YouTube for the folks out there if you want to check it out. But the first one, as I said, came out in 1986, directed by Robert Harmon, who didn't do a whole hell of a lot after this. He did They, which I think is a horror movie. I think it was produced by Wes Craven, but I could be wrong.
Was it like an exclamation point at the end of They, or was it just?
Oh, you know what? I don't know. I know what you're talking about, though. And whether they're the same thing or not, I don't know. But I do know. I do remember Nowhere to Run with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Probably coming to a PCP movie night in your near future. Keep an eye out for that. The first one I said, starring Rutger Hauer, gives a super iconic performance. C. Thomas Howell, who is the kid from The Outsiders. He's in a handful of things. Rutger Hauer, he's from Blade Runner, Hobo with a Shotgun, dude. I just watched that a couple weeks ago. Didn't know it was him. Had no idea that was the same dude.
You know what blew my mind about that is that I didn't realize that was like one of those the Grindhouse Death Proof Planetary. That was like a Grindhouse trailer that got turned into an actual. And I'd seen the movie like back in like 2012 maybe, and didn't associate the two at all. Like, oh yeah, that's a Grindhouse trailer. But
I did the same thing. I've never seen Death Proof and what is it? I've never seen those movies, but I heard that there was movies that were made because they were spoof things in the trailer. I watched Hobo with a Shotgun again. I didn't know that either till afterwards, but it makes sense. Jennifer Jason Leigh to round out the cast. She came out in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and we just talked about her in Possessor a few weeks back.
That was Jennifer Jason Leigh, the main girl in the original. No way, bro! Yeah. Wow, I gotta.
She still looks way too good for her age, because I didn't know she was that old. I didn't know she would have been this age in '86. But Rotten Tomato score 62%, 7.2 on IMDb, and a Google user rating of 92%. It had a budget of $7.9 million, box office 5.8, and so it didn't do all that well, but it did quite well as a cult classic. Clearly, it's 40 years later almost, and we're about to talk about it. And it had a direct sequel in 2003, surprisingly enough, starring the dude that started this one, C. Thomas Howell.
Oh, no. I didn't even know that. Me and Fabe were talking about it a few days ago, and he used, there was a sequel. I was like, what? I thought it was just a solo movie and went straight to a remake. And even that, I saw the remake when it came out, and I 15, 16 years later, I still didn't realize that there was a sequel. I was kind of shocked, disappointed in myself.
Well, that's what's weird is that there was a sequel, and then just 4 years later, they did the remake. You know what I mean? That's what's kind of strange. Speaking of the remake, this is the third remake that Platinum Dunes did. Michael Bay's production company. Right. They did Texas Chainsaw, then Amityville Horror House, and I think those were some big ass names. Then they're like, all right, let's dip it back down for this one. Let's go with the Hitcher, and it was kind of a sleeper one. They made money off it. They had a box office on the remake of 10 million, or excuse me, a box office of 25 million, a budget of 10 million. The director for the second one, Dave Meyers, again, he did nothing after this. Sophia Bush from One Tree Hill, the show.
Yeah, I remember that one.
You know her?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. My sister had me watching One Tree Hill back in high school.
I might want to watch it now after watching this. She didn't do many movies, and neither did Zachary Knighton. He was from another TV show, Happy Endings, which I'm not familiar with, and he didn't do a whole shitload after this either. And then the lead, I guess you'd call him the lead, the antagonist, Sean Bean from Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, and also Possessor, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, and Silent Hill to round out his horror movies. The second one, just to finish it up here, do my due diligence, 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. Kind of a surprise. We can definitely get into that. 5.6 on IMDb and an 81% Google user rating. So we're gonna play with the format a little bit here, and I want to start off with just a few different topics that we can just compare and contrast. So we're gonna do let's just start with the antagonist in this. So let me set it up. Actually, both the movies are about a man. Well, let me just say this: the first one is about a dude picks up a hitchhiker, and the dude starts being super creepy and super weird, and he's like the Terminator for the rest of the movie. You can't get rid of the guy until the end of the flick. The only major difference in the second one, and we can get into some other differences, is that there's a man and a woman, and they pick up a dude, and then he becomes the Terminator. So it's a pretty similar movie, and as I said, we'll get into the differences. But I want to start there. Phable, I'll start with you. Rutger Hauer, Sean Bean, our antagonists in the movie. Both of them pretty damn good performances, in my opinion. But what do you make? Is there one you like, or just what do you think of both performances, and who do you think did it better?
I think both performances are really solid. Sean Bean is a fine actor. I think he did well in the role. I think he did whatever the director told him to do, and he pretty much pulled it off. But Rutger Hauer, it's all about the eyes, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something in Rutger Hauer's face, the way he expresses, the way he emotes. Is something extra with that guy that is so much more believable, as a psychopath of what he was doing in this movie, that I give it totally to Rutger Hauer, man. I love Sean Bean, but Rutger Hauer, woof. That was a good one.
Oh, yeah. Steph?
No, I gotta agree that they both give fine performances. But Rutger Hauer is very much more menacing, I would say. There's something almost otherworldly about his performance, like he supernatural, it could be a fucking or a demon who just kind of he can disappear, and there's some otherworldly, whereas opposed to Sean Bean, who is just as badass and threatening. But the menace, the creepiness isn't really there. Like, he's a threat, but he doesn't have that aura that Rutger has throughout the original OG one. But the key difference I did like between the two is where Rutger Hauer just comes off as a creep almost immediately. I like that there was I wish they would have played with it a little bit more, but I like that there's a slight build up where Sean Bean's character came off as very nice initially. He lured them into a false sense of confidence or like comfortability, and then pounced on that, and then slowly unleashed all the crazy stuff. Like, it wasn't like he just started saying creepy stuff right away. He was like giving him compliments about the car and everything. Looks back at Sophia, says she's a pretty girl, like that's a little weird at first, but then he just drops the bomb with like, how long you been getting down with her, so I like that little switch up, but I would give the edge to, and because there's almost a good portion of the movie where we didn't see Sean Bean's character, I feel, in the remake.
I think both of the movies had little bit of too long of stretches. I agree. It's more with Sean Beam, but there was a stretch in both of them that I'm like, or you know what I mean? Bring the dude back.
Right. No, yeah. But I would give the edge to Rutger Hauer for sure.
I'm with you.
Slight edge, yeah.
You mean you both said a lot of things that I super agree with. The otherworldliness, the alienness of Rutger Hauer, like that's a great way to fucking put it. I think the whole first movie feels like more like it could be a dream. And I'd been thinking that in my head, like it's more shit, Steph. When we talked about remakes, that was one thing we talked about. Like the remakes in the 2000s era, they tended to be much more grounded. Now the Hitcher's pretty grounded already, but it feels even more grounded. Like the first one, it is like it's almost like a nightmare. I kept thinking, and then I rewatched part of it again today. Like I got a chance to rewatch like the first half of it, and I noticed like the dude falls asleep within the first 30 seconds. I'm like, oh shit! So you could almost interpret the whole thing as a dream because it gets. Both of them are surreal, but for some reason, they seems more surreal in the original. Right?
I definitely agree. Oh yeah.
I'm with you, but I'll just say, I mean, I agree. Rutger Hauer, there's something in his eyes, his face, his subtlety. But to go back on what you were saying, Steph, I like that you pointed out the differences in the way like that it kind of it escalates with Sean Bean's version of it or the way they wrote it in that one. I appreciate both aspects of it, you know, or of each, because I like the way the dude he just picks up Rutger Hauer in the first one and he's just super creepy right off the bat. You're like, what the fuck, bro? I just picked you up. It's raining. Like, why are you being like this? Like, so they're both really effective in a different way. And the 2000s one, it feels more 2000s. Like we don't start out a movie cold like that and just it's not the style of the era. There's got to be a little character development, a little build up to get there. So it's it's a taste thing as far as that goes. Phable, did you have something you want to say, or one of you was going to say something? I was cutting somebody off. I felt like
no.
Well, we'll come back to it. I'm sure I have a lot of rambling thoughts.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, so as we said, the first one it starts out. We've got C. Thomas Howell. He's alone. He's by himself, and for the first like 12 minutes of the movie, it's just him and then Rutger Hauer's character that you see, and a construction worker on the side of the road. And you end up getting Jennifer Jason Leigh later. So you end up having the two characters throughout the course of the second half of the movie. In the first one, we start out right away. It's boyfriend and a girlfriend. Again, Sophia Bush and Zachary Knighton. So what do you guys think about just the performances of all of those characters? Like, who did you like better? And then like how it affected the movie having one guy versus two guys. Which, again, as I was thinking of that, I wasn't realizing, it does end up being the two of them. But for me, it's pretty significant starting the first movie with just the one character. Like, you grow more attached to them, and then there's something more dreamlike and more kind of creepy just being alone on the highway rather than being with someone else, whoever it is, you know. But Phable, what do you think about Lynk? Wherever I went first last time, I'm still. I need to get a little checklist.
No, it's all right.
Sorry,
but once again, there's different aspects I like from the characters in both of them. I would, like you said, it is a little more scary to be out, especially it's traveling the desert. I did that like 10 years, not the desert, but I went through like Arizona and stuff like that while driving, and I was like, wow, man, this is very desolate even in today's times, you know. So I can only imagine back then, before there was, you know, I said this with Phable earlier, but before there was like smartphones, you know, maps that you can look at as you know, point by point. I like the main character, like when he kind of snaps, I feel it's deserved. Now he doesn't necessarily snap, but he's so adamant at the end of making sure putting this guy down. He's kind of like bump everything else, you know. This guy's a menace. It's almost like some Batman Joker stuff where this time Batman realizes there's no other way to put Joker down. You can't lock him up. So when he kind of becomes like this, not badass dude, but you know, he's kind of timid in the beginning, you know, and he's very scary, reactive, and he becomes proactive towards the end, takes the situation to his own hands. I feel it's more deserved. The Sophia The remake, I guess they were going for like the teen romance thing, and it's like it's more one of those situations where you know it's just like a torture situation to see someone you care about. You know, it's like you or them, you or them. But I don't feel like the character, the hero of the remakes journey is as earned as the first one. You know, it's not that she was ever a damsel in distress, but I I don't think they were toyed with as much as the dude was in the first one. He's kind of like, yo, I'm done, bro. Like I'm coming after him.
Right, 100%.
So,
I think part of it, I looked at the runtime of the second one. I'm like, fuck yeah. But then by the end of the movie, I'm like, I think they could have used that. In my opinion, I think the first one felt a little long, a little long.
yeah.
And then when I watched the second one, I'm like, oh, fuck, maybe not. Because you kind of needed that time to get to that point that you're talking about, to make it feel like you would really want to snap and kill a motherfucker. Like,
Right.
I definitely didn't feel that by the end of the remake, even though they just ripped her boyfriend in half and all that. So you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
Phable, where you at on it?
Yeah, I agree. I think C. Thomas Howell character is way more fleshed out. He goes on way more of a journey emotionally, mentally, physically. I think he's put through the ringer way more than these kids are. I mean, they're seeing horrific shit, but they're basically just running and reacting. This kid is he sees nothing. He sees no way out. Everything, coincidentally, everybody's against him because the cops eventually, since one of their buddies died, they all like gang up on him, kind of want him dead. So he has nowhere to run to. And the Jennifer Jason Leigh character is that like one soul that believes in him and that it's helping him get out of this mess. So that relationship, that journey stuck with me way more. Whereas these people, I feel like they were just splitting duties of the main character from the 86 version, right? Like they're just splitting what he does. And, and it kind of, they did a great job. No doubt about it. The kid and the girl, the couple, I liked it. Yeah. But their relationship, had their relationship been tested with this situation, right? Because they kind of hint at it where she's like, oh, you should have just listened to me, which was dumb, right? She was just being dumb at that point. And I think they were toying with it, but I feel like they should have dived in deeper so that it can be more comparable to what they were doing in the first one. The vibe of that whole journey that he goes through is totally lost in the second one.
Right.
Even though the characters were serviceable and likable and everything, there's just a different vibe with the first character.
Right. I think part of it is, well, first of it is this. Two Guns, right? Like in the 2000s, like, yeah, is Jessica Biel doing anything? Can we get a super hot chick to put
someone
in
on
movie?
A teen show?
Yeah, how's she look at a crop top? Anybody? So there's that. Like I get why they would want to do that, and then plus just the female representation. There is money in putting women in movies, and it's not just a woke thing. Like I know if I'm offering up a horror movie to my fiance that she might not like, if there's a female lead, or if there's a bunch of women in it, she's more likely to say yes. It's just that's a fact. It's an anecdotal fact, but it's it's saying something. I imagine them like this, like they're sitting at Platinum Dubes and like, I gotta do it. Imagine the scene at the end where they rip the girl apart. Like, what if that's his girlfriend, or what if that's the boyfriend? What if they're in a relationship rather than someone that we just met? It's gonna be more impactful. Right. But for me, it just didn't work. At the end of it, it was way less impactful, and I cared much less. And I think it's what Phable you said. They're sharing duty. Like they didn't get the time to fully develop the one character that they did in the first one. And then I will say, I think both Zachary Knighton and Sophia Bush were super serviceable. There wasn't a moment where I was like, oh, they suck, they're not good. But I do think C. Thomas Howell was significantly better. Like when he was losing it and he's pointing the gun under the table, the diner table, and the look on his face.
Oh, yeah, when he like.
Well, you even see it visually. Like Lynk referenced it in the beginning. He's all clean cut. He has this high pitched voice. Even he's like, "Hey, how you doing? Oh, hey." And then by the end of the movie, he's like, his hair's all disheveled. It looks like he's been
I'll
through a
put a
war.
bullet through
He's
your
got
ass.
a jacket on. He's got a badass gun. He's like, I'm gonna get him. Like when his voice is deeper. So yeah, man, it's just a way different thing.
He was good, man. I thought he was damn good. What were you saying?
Oh no, I think that's something the remake kind of suffered from, is too much of a 2013 came to mind, a remake of a reboot of Evil Dead. Whereas that's like taking a concept and doing something new with it. You know, it's like it's got the vibe. You can tell they're homaging it. But this one was like almost a scene for scene remake. It's like, how can we get to this scene and just change it just a little bit differently? Yeah.
Intensify it, shoot it better.
Yeah, the shot, well shot. Remember, the guy, Dave Meyers, I remember him from my MTV days. He was a big music video director, worked with a lot of musicians on a lot of their hit music videos.
That makes sense. It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot of a quick cut. It works for the film. It makes it feel, because the movie, for those that haven't seen it, it starts out like a horror movie. It's dark, it's raining, and that's like only like the first 13 minutes. It kind of transitions into an action movie by the end of it. And the dude seemed like he was hired more for his skills with action than for his skills with the horror in the second one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it was great. It was really solid when it came to that. I wanted to do a little bit on, just because I thought it's one of the biggest differences in the film, in the two films, is the opening of it and how they meet Rutger Hauer in the first one and Sean Bean in the second one. In the first one, as we kind of mentioned, it's just a cold opening. Dude's a hitchhiker. He picks him up. That to me makes it feel more like an urban legend. Like this is, it's kind of like a message. Don't pick up hitchhikers. That could happen to you. And the second one, the couple are driving down the road together. You remember the bit where they get something on the window and he's throwing water on the window and he's trying to clean it up. As soon as that's going on, I'm like, oh, he's about to swerve over and he's going to cut Sean Bean off and he's going to piss him off. I'm like, oh, they're going to give him a reason why he's mad. And then I'm like, oh, I don't really fucking like that. I don't want him to have a reason. It's very 2000s of him, though. It's very modern, like to give a motivation. Right. It's what they did with Michael Myers. Well, they did it with Michael Myers in the second one, but they continue to kind of do it. And I kind of prefer the first one where there fucking is no reason. And you guys might have figured out more than me about this movie. It's something we're definitely going to get into. About he's asking the whole time. He's trying the antagonist is telling the good guys in both versions to say I want to die. Say I want to die. And I never fully fucking got that. Maybe we can get into it. That might be part of it. But to me, I never found that there was I never understood. I still don't. Hopefully we can get to it in this show. I don't know the reason why Rutger Hauer's character was killing these people. Sean Bean, I get a little bit more. He's explainable. So it's a little less cool, a little less otherworldly, like you were saying, Steph. So I'll just, I've said enough. Phable, what do you think of all that? Like, do you agree with me about like the different ways that they were introducing the protagonists in the show? Like, how do you feel about them?
I prefer the first version, the first 86 version of his introduction. Like you said, the urban legend aspect to it. Him just coming in and weird stretching right off the top automatically drew me in, right? And this kid, he's like, doesn't know whether to laugh or to cry. Like he's switching between both instantly. Like it's like, oh, I'm gonna cut your legs off and whatever. And then he's like, huh? And he's like, ha 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 ha. He's like, right. And he's like, no, I really am gonna do it. Like, and then he kicks the guy out the car, which is a total, like, I didn't expect that to happen. Like, oh, he got him. He got him. He's like, yeah. And he's celebrating. And I felt that. I was like, yeah, boy, you got away. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know that this guy was going to haunt them through the whole fucking movie either. I was like, yeah, he got away. Maybe some other weird stretch shit is going to happen. You know what I mean? And it just enthralls you. The other one, I feel like they're trying to set up the relationship between these two. And it's successful. You feel the love. You're into them. Like you said, they're not bad characters. They're not bad actors at all. They're doing their thing, but the slow build up for me maybe it's just a little too slow, a little too 2000s, like you said, a little too explainy. I did catch that. I did feel like, okay, one of my thoughts was watching this was the writing is dumbed down. You could tell automatically. There's a lot of implications in the first one, where here they just tell you.
Right.
And I kind of like the me using my head to figure it out thing in the first one aspect of it. So the both scenes are great. Because I do like when the guy kicks him like 50 times to get him out the car, and the chick is like trying to open the door.
He's like, get out the car.
Yeah, it was kind of dope. So I dig it, but I like the first version for sure better.
I agree with you 100%. I think that aspect of it, like once he turns, it's shot so well in the second one. You really can't deny like the intensity of it. It's always going to be the thing when you're comparing a remake with the original. There's so many, like in a lot of ways, the technical aspects of film, the coverage that they can get. They probably shot this. I don't know. It's 2007. They may have shot the remake digitally, where they can shoot way more than the expensive film that they would be using. So there's a lot more coverage in this movie than the 80s one. What about you though, Steph, on the introduction of Ryder?
Oh, this movie is I'll give the edge to the first one, but I did, like I was saying earlier, I did like that whole sense of false sense of security you got from Sean Bean's version, where he's in the gas station, like, he's like smiling at the guy. He was like, "Oh, that was you that coming off? No problem." He was like, he's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry about pulling off." He's like, "Oh, I don't want to pick me up either." I come off like a creepy guy. So when he drops the mask when they're in the car and starts with the creepy shit, it's a nice little buildup, of intensity. But I will say the first one has more of an effect because, it fits in with that urban legend thing you guys were saying, where it's like it gets straight to the reason of why you don't pick up hitchhikers, especially on desolate roads. Because at the drop of a dime, and there's no one out there, that pretty much is, you're taking a risk like that where someone can just pop off as soon as they get in your car. So I will give the edge to the first one, but I do like certain things about the second one.
Right. I mean, it's funny because as I was sitting here, I'm like, okay, these are the three things I want to compare before we get into our overall thoughts. I'm like, well, shit, check on the original. It's going to seem like I like the original way better than the first one. And we're going to get into our overall thoughts on the first two, but I'll say that's not the case. I think I'll just go ahead and say it. I think I do like the original a little bit better, but the first one, or the remake, has a lot of things that are done much better. So let's kind of get into it. Link, what is your overall thoughts on the original? Yeah, let's do that.
Overall thoughts? It's I feel it's got that 80s vibe. Of course it's an 80s movie. But I like it, the vibe of it. I'm not trying to get into the second one. Second one's kind of the first one seems unique. The second one kind of seems manufactured in a way. It is a remake, of course, but I do like you were saying earlier, it seems like a fever dream or a nightmare. Like, maybe the heat got to him and, he's having a really vivid ass nightmare because of all the stuff going on. I like the first one. I'm trying to think of a better way to surmise it. It's a unique film. The stalker aspect, he just keeps coming. It's almost like, who said Terminator? Was that you, Verno? You said he's like Terminator. Yeah, it is almost like he's the desert ghostly Terminator, and
title for a while.
I like the ambiguity, whereas the second one, to me, I couldn't come up with a backstory for Rutger Hauer's Hitcher, but for me and the Sean Beans, I was like, maybe he's some ex-Black Ops military guy. He did a lot of badass missions, was a bad motherfucker, came back and just kind of, was tossed aside and kind of just, he's out there losing his mind. And, that's why he's able to shoot all these cops and go on high-speed chases, shooting police helicopters. So I appreciate the fever dreamness of the original quite a bit.
Let me just fill in a little blank because I realize I do this all the damn time. I start to say something, I get sidetracked, and then I never finished where I was before. I had said how there's a reason why Sean Bean's character or why Ryder's character he has a reason to be upset with the protagonist in the second one, and it's because they see him in the rain and they don't pick him up, and then they later on see him at a gas station, so they do still make the decision to give a stranger a ride. They just go a little bit more of a convoluted route to get there in the building it up. So I just wanted to say that for those that hadn't seen the remake, that's the difference. It's probably one of the biggest differences in the movie, other than there being the two characters. But well said. Where are you at on what's your overall thoughts on the original Phable?
I really enjoyed this movie. The 1986 Hitcher, I think, is actually quite brilliant of a film, and I'm very shocked that I had not seen this movie, because this movie would have definitely been something that influenced my young mind in '86. I caught it. It is a brilliant story that's being told here. It's a lot of sub things going on that are not told to you, but are totally told to you through emotion, action. You know what I mean? Just what's going on. There's a layer to the Hitcher, underlying theme that's so prevalent, so cool the way it plays out. The shots you talked about. The shots of the 2007, I actually prefer the shots of the 286. One, because some of the things they achieved with less is very impressive. Those car chases are very impressive. That helicopter scene, very impressive. Like you said, they spent $10 million. Hard to tell with that chase. You see, that looked expensive. When that helicopter fell and exploded, that looked expensive. So I was more impressed with the actual shots. Over the top, like you said, it can get over the top at times, but then it quickly grounds itself. So it's like you said, that fever that speaks to that fever dream, because it's like so crazy. Like, this is so crazy. This is crazy shit. And then it's just like, nah, this is real shit. Like, this is really happening to this. You know what I mean? I love C. Thomas's journey. Like I said, part of that subtext to the story that I find so gripping has to do with him a lot.
What is it? Go ahead and lay it on me. Don't hold back, brother. If you got subtext, because I don't get it. If you want to explain it to me, I want to fucking hear it.
It's like he seems like he comes from a well-mannered home. He seems like he's got manners. He's picking up a guy off the street. You know what I mean? And that whole line of I want to die, or whatever it is that he's making him trying to say, I think he's, in his sick sort of way, trying to release C. Thomas Howell from, I don't know, what he perceives as some yuppie life. Or, you know what I mean? Like, you're not really living, man. You're not really living. You're scared to die. You know what I mean? That's what I'm
getting disappointed in him when he won't say it.
Yeah, like, you're so scared to die. Like, look at you. Like he pities his character. So he makes it his mission to free this kid. That's why he protects him through the whole thing. Because Rutger Hauer could have got away with all this shit.
Yeah.
He could have got away with all this shit. And he kept coming back and putting himself in more danger just to free this kid, just so the kid can kill him. And that is what the hell it's all about. And through that journey, this kid goes from being afraid to die to not being afraid to die to not being afraid to take a life. That is ill. And that's what I got off of this movie right here. And that's why I say it's brilliant.
That's why I like making content, brother, because like that's the type of shit right there. And that's why I love doing these shows. Next time I watch this movie, there's a good chance I'll enjoy it more, because I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? I'll be fun. A lot of times when it comes to subtext and themes, if you don't get it, like a lot of times I fucking won't, especially if it's well written, you don't get it until the second, third watch through. None of that ever really got to me too much. Other than that, he was like being fatherly to him, but I never fucking understood what it was. But that makes sense.
They say there's a connection between you two. I don't get it, but there's a connection between you two. I mean, it's there, and he says to him, he says, what do you want, or something like that, and he goes, "You're a smart kid. You'll figure it out."
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Which was wasted in the second movie, he said it like on some manufactured fan servicey kind of way that I didn't like.
That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. The way he's putting pennies on his fucking eye. That was so creepy, dude.
Because he was the one that ended up dying in the second one instead of the girl. It was him. So it kind of cut the whole meaning of what he was saying in the first movie. The subtext of what he's saying, the pennies on the eyes, like you're saying, all of that stuff visually meant something way more. The second one is more to me of a slasher. Just a slasher, a freaking good slasher, but a slasher. Mm-hmm. Whereas the first one, there's deeper meaning. That's a film to me. That first one.
Hell yeah, dude.
I meant to chime in on the whole just tell me you want to die. I like what you guys were saying with that. I kind of took it as like a submission thing. Like if they had admitted they're helpless and defeated, that he would have maybe given them a chance. Probably not, but because there is something in between in that and what he's saying. But I took it as he just wanted them to stop trying to fight, admit, submit you're defeated, you're helpless.
That's what
turn your belly up. Like
that was my thought, because that's what I think you are right, Phable, but that's what I thought. Like that was the thing that came out to me is like, oh, just do what he says. Like he wants you to like be his little bitch, which that might be true too. But they both might be fucking true. But
have you ever seen No Country for Old Men with Anton Chigurh? I almost got like that. He was trying to get them to understand that in a weird way, like it's kind of mingled with what Phable was saying. Get them to realize something about life. That in a weird deep stretch way. He does all this shit to try to get them to come to an understanding. Like Anton Chigurh's whole thing was, this is, there's no predetermined, or I guess there was predetermined destiny, but when your time comes, don't try to fight it, because your whole life has led to this moment. So why, just embrace it instead of trying to fight against the wave. So I could see similarities between Anton Chigurh and the Hitcher, honestly, with their messages and how they deliver them.
Right, hell yeah. This wasn't part of the rundown, but before we move on to the remake, do you guys have like a favorite bit? Because there's a lot of little things that happen in the original that we haven't really touched on. There's a few that don't take place in the remake that are pretty fucking great. I'll start it off when he finds the finger. He gets it. They get away from this dude. He's already seen him. He's got away from him twice at this point. He gets to a diner. She lets him in. He calls the cops. He's having a nice little conversation with this pretty hot chick. He's eating some fries, and all of a sudden, one of them is a finger. That, in my opinion, the reason why that didn't end up in the remake is because that's not grounded enough. It's like they can't get jiggy with that in the 2000s. Like, how the hell did he get there? That's insane. Tell me he's in the back and nobody saw him. He's putting fingers in the fries. That's crazy. Like, imagine him back there.
Orders up.
But I love it. I love it. Yeah. Nick, brother.
I've said my favorite. There's a line. I just love the line where he's like, he finds him at the diner towards the end. This is when he's like right before he puts the pennies on his eyes, and he like has that gun standoff with him, and he sees the gun on the table. He's like, he's like, you get out of here. Or he said something, I'm going to blow either your brains to your ass or something like that. And he was just sped up at that point, and it was so intense. And it's like, I feel you, brother. I feel you.
And Rutger Hauer is so calm and jolly on the other side, just like
he's like, when the click went off, and he was almost like a mime, like
the way he says it's not loaded. He says, yeah. He says, yeah. Like the way he says, it was fucking hysterical. What about you, Phable? You can think of a favorite bit in the original?
Oh man, there's a lot that I liked in the original, man. Damn. Yeah, I guess it would be the chase sequence. I was really impressed. It was a point where he stopped the car and the two cars went ahead and kind of flipped over each other and did some. I was like, oh my God. Like, it really got gassed. I was like, holy shit. Right. This kid is in trouble. Like, he's in real freaking trouble now. But I was so impressed when he thought, right after that, after the cop cars flipped over, he thought he was in the clear, and he's coming over this hill. And all of a sudden, right when they get to the peak of the hill, the helicopter comes right over, and it's like back on and popping again. And I was like, oh snap.
Oh,
it was so shot so well when that helicopter came up. It was kind of scary the way it popped over the hill. I was like, holy, it's good, man. I was impressed.
Hell yeah. And I want to mention one more moment, and then there was another thought that I have on my overall thoughts that I didn't throw in there. The teddy bear moment. They do this in both movies. I even turned to my fiance because she didn't watch the original with me. She was gonna. She ended up watching the remake, which is more her flavor. And I was like, God, I hope they do this bit. I hope they do this bit. The way that after he kicks him out the first time, it's 12 minutes of the movie, he gets rid of the guy, and I'm like, what the like I was like really like thrown off. Like, what is this movie gonna be now? I expected I was the opposite of you, Phable. I thought it was gonna be the whole movie with him in this car. I'm like, how are they gonna tell the story? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he kicks him out, and then he's cruising along. He's all happy. This little station wagon comes by. All these happy little kids in the back. One kid's like playing buckaroo, whatever at him, and he's like, he starts giving this little cute little bang bang back to him, and then all of a sudden he pulls the teddy bear away, and there's Rutger Hauer behind it. And he's like, bang bang, bitch. It's like, holy shit, that right there. They did that in both films, but it was much more, as we've been saying, dreamlike in the first one. You're more like, what is this really happening? Like, how is this even possible? Like, he's like a mystical being.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I just wanted to say, like, my biggest gripe with both films, as soon as I always have an issue anytime somebody's fucking wrongfully accused. And it might stem from, I can't stand being fucking wrongfully accused. It's one of the most frustrating things that could ever happen. It's like, I didn't do it, man. Like, I didn't fucking do it. But it bugs me. Not that he's just wrongfully accused, but anytime that there's a situation, and they kind of try to write their way around it, but when something could be cleared up with no, just shut up and listen to me for a second. Like, I didn't do this, and this happened because of this, and they try to call his brother, which the whole time I'm like, how the fuck is calling your brother going to help anything? He's like, no, he's not a murderer. They're like, oh, he says you're not a murderer.
No, he's a good kid. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get that bit. So that, like, as soon as it turned into that kind of movie, like, I was a little bit more bummed out because, as we said, it turns more action. My favorite part of the movie is the first 12 minutes. The intimate stuff with Rutger Hauer and him in the car, in the dark, in the rain. It's more horrific. It eases out of the horror and into a different kind of movie that's still fucking good. It's still well done how it is. But the movie that I had in my head, not that I would have been able to write a better movie, but if a movie, the way I saw it, was going to be successful and still talked about 40 years ago, it must have been written really fucking cleverly. If it's just two dudes in a car, I thought it was going to be some really, in a different way than you're talking about, Phable, some really smart film with smart dialogue and a psychological thing he's doing with them. Not the movie that it is. You know what I mean? So I was a little bit like,
I find there's something very scary about the sun in the desert and being alone and being stalked. And you know how there's a scene where he runs into some sort of abandoned warehouse or building, and Rutger Hauer comes,
throws the keys,
Kid doesn't know what to do. He's bugging out. He's like, what is going on? And
Right.
then all of a sudden, a truck comes through the store out of nowhere.
Right.
I mean, this is stuff they didn't even put in the second one. This is what I'm saying. I think the first one's a little more impressive for budget scale, you know, what they were doing. So
that stuff is still a little like scary. It eases out of the horror more gradually than the first one does.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's definitely a big.
We're going to talk about Jaws on Dylan's Horror Show. I don't know if we're all going to be there, but I don't fucking know if I'm going to be there because I got a pool party. But I'm going to try to talk about Jaws tomorrow. That's a movie that does the same thing. It starts out horrific as fuck, and then by the end of it, it's action adventure. It's reminded me of Nope too. No spoilers for that, but that's another movie. By the end of it, it's like, oh, this feels like a Spielberg thing. So there's a format to certain horror movies that start out horror and end up action adventure, and this falls in line with those.
Yeah, there's a part of the first one also that, like, where is he gonna pop up? Because he pops up in so many scary ways in the first one. Like, he was in their hotel, and the way the light from the head beams of the cars pulling into the hotel lit him up. I'm just saying, it's just good stuff, man.
Oh, it's freaky as fuck. It's like, he's in the glove box. Oh god. I just want to say, while Bobby made that comment, while I have it up there, this movie, it was written by a dude. I wish I would have wrote his name down. I think it's Eric Red, not Eric the Red, but I'm pretty sure it's Eric Red. And
Yeah,
he was inspired to
Excellent.
write this movie while listening to the Doors' Riders on the Storm. And he was thinking about like just how creepy a highway could be. And again, I'm saying at least so many things that I like better about the original. But that's one thing that the original does better is like it's more believable in that era. You feel more isolated out there on the highway than you do in 2007. It's hard to get that environment. They break her cell phone, but it's just like I don't know. The world seems desolate in 2007.
Yeah, there's at 2007. You know, it was right on the brink of the whole smartphone boom. I believe the first iPhone was it 2007 it came out.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like we were on the cusp. So there's definitely ways to navigate around the world that there wasn't in 1986, where it was absolutely you're trekking on your own, bro. Like good luck, you know, follow the directions, don't veer off course. You know, very desolate. As the years go on, we're always building more wherever you know, I'm sure that the desert strip now is a little bit more, even if it's not much, it's more populated than it was in 1986. But to highlight something I enjoyed more in the remake than the first one, since we're singing the first one's praises. So just so people know, we love them both or enjoy both. I did like the end scene where the first one, the girl gets ripped in half. Spoiler, guy gets ripped in half in the second one. But in the second one, after they rip the dude in half, the camera follows the truck, you know, its headlights. And it's like camera's panning over and it just gets really bright and it transitions over to the light that the doctor's like looking and checking out the eye. As opposed to the first one, I believe it was just like a black shot or like a cut to it, or it might have been a slight fade away. But it was
I think it was just
it was I appreciated the style more with the second one. I was like, oh, that was pretty damn cool. I like transitions like that.
I mean, to touch on what you were saying earlier, Phable, about the style, like it's way slicker. There's more production value in the second one. But you guys know me, like I do prefer a rougher style of film. So that's why I said it's more of a taste thing. It's more of a preference thing. They find a way to make things more chaotic in the 2007 version.
There's definitely more stuff done, but it definitely has that Michael Bay feel to it. The sepia tone, coloration, the
sweaty,
really warm. It's a really warm orange looking film.
It looks like they put a grit filter on it, like to make it look more grimy at times. It's just that I guess because I know the first one was 86 and I'm seeing what they're doing with these cameras. Like there's this great shot of Rutger Hauer where the camera pans up from his legs or something like that and comes forward. Like there's a bunch of that going on that I did not expect. I was just super shocked. Whereas the 2000, I expect all of them to look like that. It's like Michael Jordan, right? Yeah. Michael Jordan was special in the 80s, but now every basketball player is Michael Jordan. Like
they all grew up watching Michael Jordan. Exactly, dude. Yeah, that's how it works, dude. Just something I wanted to say before we move on to the remake. Duel. Steven Spielberg's Duel. Some of us may have been sent this movie. I know I got a copy from Scarpad. That movie is the predecessor. Yeah, is the predecessor to this movie. Like it basically, because Phable, you said you like the idea of it's scary being out there in the desert and someone's chasing you. That movie, imagine the antagonist, instead of it being a human being, it's just this fucking truck and it just won't leave him alone. And he's just trying to get away from it. You never end up seeing, spoiler alert, you never see who's driving this truck. But it's an hour and 25 minutes of a truck chasing a dude down a highway. And I think it's really good. It's Steven Spielberg's first movie. It's worth checking out. And it was one that I was going to ask you guys to do at one point. So keep an eye out for it. But all right, let's jump into the remake, man. As I said, this one directed by Dave Meyers and came out in 2007, 4 years after the sequel. Slight differences. Let's just jump right into it, man. I don't know who I went to last time. Whichever one of you answers first is gonna speak. What do you guys think of? What's your overall thoughts on the second one? Who wants to go first? On the remake, I should say.
I'll go first. To summarize it simply, it's a good popcorn flick. I think if you've not seen the original, it does it justice because it's essentially just the same thing. Just they switch things up just a little bit, just a smidge, so it's ever so slightly different. It's a competent enough film, but it feels very commercial. As if the other one the original was a little bit more unique in how it was presented.
Hell yeah. No, I agree completely. Another thing that's just like, if I had never seen the original, which I hadn't, if I had just watched the remake, that's such a big fucking difference. I
Yeah.
would feel, and especially if I had watched the original Hitcher a couple years ago, and then I watched the new one again, that would be so different. But watching them one day and then a couple days later and Phable, you straight watched them back to back, so that's a whole different experience. And to me, it's
I actually
gotta hurt
saw.
the experience like a little bit, you know.
No, yeah. I seen this. I saw the remake first, and I
Okay,
found out that it was based on a pre-existing movie, and I went back and tracked that one down. So, yeah.
right, hell yeah. Phable, what do you think about the remake, brother?
Yeah, I agree with Steph 100%. I think this is a really good popcorn slasher flick. I think that if you had never seen the first one, you would come away enjoying this one. I don't think you would feel like it's a horrible movie in any sort of way. It's scary in its ways. It has some violence, some gore. It's a weird stretch in itself because it's following the beats of the first movie, so it's kind of a weird guy, weird guy. But yeah, it's just that though. Like it's just that, as good as it is as good as it could be forgettable.
Yeah,
Right?
you fucking nailed it right there. That's the word, brother.
Yeah.
When we talked remakes again, Link, this is one thing that I fucking wrote down and I never said when we talked about remakes. They're way more forgettable. Like I really enjoy 2009 Friday the 13th. It's got mixed reviews, whatever. I think it's a fun fucking movie, but I always forget about it. It's just that they're just much more. Same thing with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's good. It's damn near fucking great. But if I hadn't watched it just a couple months ago when we did that show, I wouldn't remember it. Like I didn't remember it before we had done it, and I had just watched it a couple years ago. Like that whole era for me, there's like you could almost compare it to like digital music to a live band. There's just like a soullessness that can't be explained. There's something missing. And like
It's
you
very
said, the word
manufactured.
manufactured,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah, it's because
Yeah.
all right, what are we gonna do? We know exactly what we're gonna do. How do we manufacture it
Build the
for a
tension up with it.
2007 audience? Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we use all these tricks? So I mean, I'll say, dude, like, and this again, I watched them right back to back, and I watched the remake a little bit too fucking late tonight. I was much more into the first half of it, and by the second half of both movies, I'll be honest with you, like Phable, you really enjoyed the action bits in the first one, and I mean, I think they were probably good, but at that point in the movie, my experience is that I'm a little like, I wish it wasn't this movie. I wish it wasn't a movie that's gonna have a helicopter exploding, because that's maybe it's just because of my expectations. That's not what I thought I was signing up for or whatever. And I will say in the remake, that fucking action scene is on steroids, and it's pretty badass too. It's cranked the fuck up. But by that point in the second one, I'm more checked out.
Ready to check
I
out.
I was less
I agree.
interested by the end of it. It followed the same beats too closely for me to have just watched this movie a couple days ago. But there's nothing that I could be like, that sucked about that movie. It was a bad movie. It's a good, entertaining, solidly fucking pretty well acted in some areas as far as Sean Bean is concerned, pretty greatly acted.
Absolutely.
But still, like, there's nothing that I'm gonna like. I'm not too excited about it. But if
When
someone's
you
like, "Hey, what's one of the good remakes?" I would put Hitcher on the list now. It
Yeah,
wouldn't
oh
be
yeah.
my top 10, but it's something I'd be like, "Oh, the Hitcher, that was a
Solid
great one."
recommendation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
It just gets to a point. Just real quick, it gets to a point with the remake. It's like when you've seen that they've kind of in a copy verbatim certain scenes, you get to a point where you're just like, okay, I know what to expect towards the end. So it's like, all right, bro. And if you weren't too hooked on it in the first one, you certainly won't be hooked on it in the second one.
Yeah, for sure.
My thing is like, okay, you mentioned the Michael Bay production company had made the Texas Chainsaw remake, and they had made the Amityville Horror remake, right? I think with the Amityville, with the Texas Chainsaw remake, it becomes sort of its own thing because Texas Chainsaw to begin with is a little abstract. I don't care if you're a big fan of it. It is an abstract film. The way it starts, the way it gets rolling, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not for everyone. The original, the OG is not for everyone. So the remake is more palatable for general audiences, and you could understand why there's a cult following for the remake as it stands. And when it comes to Amityville, kind of the same thing. Amityville is a little slow. It's a little more, not as much tension. And for some people, they probably don't like that. But where the remake for that also makes it more palatable. It's more scary, way more scary, I would think, than the original.
Much sexier.
It's funny you name I actually really enjoy both the remake of TMC or Texas, TCM and Amityville.
Me too.
Right.
Me too.
Right. So, but with this one, I don't think that movie needed a remake because it's palatable already. It's already good. It's already holds up.
But it's 86, and the other ones are 74 and 70. Exactly, dude. By 86, the 80s movies are much more like a modern movie than the 70s. Something changed. We've talked about it before. There's more theatrical acting in the 70s. The pacing. You know what happened? It's cocaine. Cocaine happened.
We gotta make it quick, guys. Cut the scene, or we're gonna have quick focus.
Yeah, exactly. Do you guys have any other thoughts you want to get on the remake? Any other differences? Anything you want to throw out there before we wrap this shit up and we grade this thing? By the way, anybody down in the chat, go ahead if you want to throw your letter grade out there now for both the films. We're going to grade them at the same time. If you've seen either or, throw them down in the chat below.
Yeah, I would just say that, like I said, the Hitcher 2007 is a good slasher, but it loses a lot of the character or the subtext of what's going on in the first one. The supernatural element is kind of lost. But if you never watched the first one, you watch the second one, I can't tell you dislike it. I think you have a good time with the second one.
Well said, dude. I agree.
I think there's a little bit of subtext going on in the remake. In the beginning, I guess it's kind of it's both movies, but in the remake, it's more like, of course, don't judge a book by its cover. But they're at the gas station at the very beginning. Gas station attendant is asking the dude about his car and about the chick, and it's like, the car is giving him this preconceived notion of who this guy is and how he operates, and it's almost like that with Sophia Bush's character, where maybe Sean Bean thought she was a damsel in distress, and she wasn't the damsel in distress. Like, it was that preconceived notion. She's a girl. She's traveling with her boyfriend, who's got this badass car. He's got tats. We have preconceived notions, based off of visuals and stuff like that. So I think there's a little bit of that going. Not as deep as the first one. I don't even know if that's what the second was going for, but if it was, they could have executed it a little bit smoother.
Or they might have been just switching it up for the sake of that, and it just like comes off like, you know what I mean? Like just switch it up, and then it'll come off like, okay, so a different vibe. But I don't, like you said, I don't think they follow through with any of the things that they try to switch up.
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. There's not enough. It's like brief mentions. But then quickly back to let's get on course to follow the original. They don't ever go off into their own direction and explore anything that the original doesn't really explore.
Hell yeah. Let's jump into it, dude. Let's do these ratings. We got Bobby down there dishing out a 4.5 and a 3.0. I don't know what kind of fucking weird rating system you're using, Bobby.
I'm just grading system.
We grade things over here. That's an A and a C. I get that. That's fine. Link, where are you at, man? You want to give these bad boys a letter grade?
I will give the original. I'll give it a solid B+. There's something about 80s films, that they got a vibe to them, and most people love them. It's definitely like something that you could only really shoot it the way it was shot this way. It was like in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unique film. It's a unique film. I will give the remake. I give it a C plus.
Oh yeah.
A C
Hell
plus.
yeah.
Wow.
It's
I didn't expect
it's
that. Okay.
it's a competent enough film, but at the end of the day, it's just too tied to the original. It doesn't try to do it. It's like I get homages to certain scenes, but it's almost like they were trying to get from scene to scene. It's like you can take the concept, have certain homages, and still have like a completely different movie. You know, like there was, case in point, Rise of the Evil Dead earlier this year. Like there was a bunch of homages that you'd get to the callbacks to the other films, but they were doing their own thing, and they didn't do their own thing really with this one. So it's a competent enough film. You're not gonna have a bad time watching it, but it's just not original.
Right. Oh yeah. Well said, brother. Phable, where you at, bro?
1986 Hitcher. I'm gonna give it an A, solid A. I think we've been watching a lot of movies on Dylan's Harvest Show that want to imply some sort of creepiness, like Fate the Black and the creepy kids and stuff. But I just don't get it from these people. I'm not scared at all. It doesn't do nothing for me. Rutger Hauer, admittedly,
menacing, bro.
Is up. Know something's up. What's going to happen? You know what I mean? The without the gore and the dumb, the tropes of horror, without any of that, it manages to give me that sense of, dread that I want from my horror movies. So, and I didn't have no problem with pacing. I think pacing's great. I think it's well acted. Great cast. 80s cast.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Not,
Jennifer Jason Leigh, that boost did it up.
Great. I think she's really good in the film. We haven't really spent much time talking. She doesn't have much to do, but she's just fucking great with what she has to work with in the movie.
And the people who play the cops, I think, are great. The guys.
Dale from Walking Dead was damn sheriff, bro.
That's one of my favorite things about getting more into old movies is, first of all, it's usually Dale. Dale's fucking everywhere. Just seeing people like that, you're like, oh my God. People that you like. Jennifer Jason Leigh, honestly, for me, I don't really know her. So I just saw her in Possessor. That's my Jennifer Jason Leigh.
She's in Possessor too?
Yeah. Her and Sean being both in Possessor. How weird is that?
Wow.
Movie,
okay. I'm gonna watch that tonight.
Sorry, Faye. Where we at, bro?
Solid A. Highly recommend. I don't think anybody would dislike this movie. I really don't. I think it's really generalized for anybody. And the theme is not so freaking deep that you gotta watch it like 20 times to catch it. Like
right.
What was the movie we watched recently where it's like,
Martin.
Martin. 5 minutes and I'm
I'm gonna stand up for Martin and I'm gonna stand up for Fade to Black, but I'm also gonna agree with you. I feel like this is something that I hear from you a lot. And I'm tempted to try and do your accent. That's not horror. That's not scary. and I get that. There's a lot of movies that aren't scary that I still like, that are horror movies that are just doing something fucking weird. Like you're right. I'm never afraid when I watch Martin. This is a very random ass movie that people that don't follow Dylan Shark. What the fuck is Martin? But there's those movies that don't scare me that I still think are horror that I still enjoy. But then I get why others wouldn't at the same time.
Just to riff on this, Robbie gave me a little call out yesterday on his comic book review show. I appreciate good character studies, okay? I don't care. I will say that Taxi Driver is a character study. Way better than Martin. Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal, character study. My personal opinion, way better than Martin. But, I appreciate good character studies.
This is the opposite sort of character study, right? Like, this kid is not crazy. He's totally milquetoast. And he turns crazy.
You see him dissect.
Right.
Yeah.
Putting him in this situation. So, I agree with you, Link. We do understand character studies.
Right.
Don't condescend to us about that.
I would never say, dude, all these things fall down to taste. It's like, there's certain, because I'll say like Martin, I really fucking like that movie. Like it's like I like it, but I'm not gonna say you don't fucking get it. I think you guys got it. I think it's not to your taste. That's all it is.
No, absolutely, yeah.
Did you you didn't give your grade for the remake yet?
Solid A for two. Sorry, I went off on a rant.
Great, no, great. That's part of the show.
2007, I'm gonna give it a B, a solid B.
Respect.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the film. My problems with the film are because I watched the first one first.
That's what brought it down for me, is because I really, when I first saw this one, I really enjoyed the remake, but it was like once I saw the, and I remember seeing, I wanted to see this one because I was hyped from the trailers, and I remember this one was getting bad reviews, and I understand how. I was like, I saw it was pretty decent, bro. But then I finally watched the first one. I was like, there's there's a lot missing from compared. There's a whole vibe missing from the first one. We've been saying, this one feels a little bit more manufactured, but this one is not a bad watch on its own. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the reviews
and be happy with it. But if you did see the first one, I mean, if you're any kind of film person, you're gonna know that the first one's superior. You're just gonna, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Usually, I mean, 99% of the time, the fucking remake's gonna be inferior to the original.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you brought up the critics, because I'm looking at that 19%. I saw that going in. I don't always look beforehand, and I know we've talked about Rotten Tomatoes and what it really means. I feel like there's a fucking bias though towards horror in general. That's obvious, but there's even more of a bias towards remakes, especially at that time. There wasn't just Platinum Dooms. This is the third for Platinum Dooms, but there's other companies doing remakes at the same time.
House of Wax.
Yeah,
the first two I feel get a co-status. I think a lot of people like that Texas Chainsaw
and Amityville.
Oh yeah. Well,
critics.
I don't know. People, everybody I talk to likes Amityville and the Amityville remake. Every critic that I hear doesn't like it. Like they scoff at it, but I've never talked to anyone that didn't like it. So it's like, what the fuck? That's like, who gives a shit what critics say? But then at the same time, I do, because I like to, I don't know, I like to compare and contrast the things. And usually there's something interesting to be taken from what the critics think compared to what a Google user rating is. The Google user on the remake is 81%. The Rotten Tomatoes is 19%. That's interesting.
80.
The user, that's the universal grade, bro.
Right there, it matches up like
No,
go ahead, my brother.
I was gonna say, this is a random riff, but the Amityville remake is significant to me is because I enjoy Ryan Reynolds, and that was a big departure for me personally, where I was like, oh, this dude's not just a funny guy. Like he can take on something a little bit more dramatic. I don't know if I know they came out the same year as Blade Trinity, but even in Blade Trinity, he was cool, he was funny, but he had the quips. This one, he was a normal dude, and it really showed his range.
Amityville, and I loved it as a kid. I thought it was scary as hell, like la 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 la. I thought it was scary. And then I saw the remake in the movie theater, and I was blown away. Totally topped that. That's just my opinion.
That's awesome, because I love that movie too. I think Ryan Reynolds, and that's what I hear. Like, oh, Ryan Reynolds was terrible. I think he's fucking great in it. I think he's charming, and then he gets scary, and that's what he's supposed to be. He's more charming than the original guy ever was. I think I haven't seen this movie in probably 10 years, but I've fucking seen that movie like 5 or 6 times back in the era that it came out with. I loved it. I used to watch it all the fucking time. So I've never understood the hate for that. But I will go ahead and jump into my grades now. And I'm right there with you, Steph. I'm a B+ for the original. It's I'm gonna fucking say exactly what you said. It's unique, and then that Rutger Hauer performance, man. What is iconic? Usually when I think iconic, it's something that we've seen. It's Michael Jordan jumping from the free throw line. It's because I've seen that fucking image my whole life, and it's something that's like, oh yeah. But the other side of iconography is just seeing something for the first time and fucking knowing that it's iconic. Just looking at it and be like, oh, that must be iconic. And then it turns out it is. You know what I mean? There's something about them that's undeniable. There's no one that's going to watch that and be like, oh, the Rutger Hauer was terrible in that. It's like, no, he's fucking alien. Like, what is he doing on this planet in this movie? It's so fucking freaky.
Dude, this might be one of my top Rutger Hauer performances. I never saw this movie, and I love Rutger Hauer, man. This was good. He was really good in this.
He's incredible, dude. And I wish I would have known it at the time, but it turns out he's incredible in Hobo with a Shotgun too. I just didn't know that it was him. That movie's fucking awesome. But with the second one, again, I'm right there with you, Steph. I'm gonna go with C+ for all the reasons that we've mentioned. It's entertaining, and everything that you could ding it on isn't really the movie's fault. It's like it's the nature of a remake. It's tough to watch. Boom, boom, boom. If I had never watched the remake and I watched that, it would be a B. Like it would be a B. It's a good fucking movie, but because it's a remake, it's a solid movie. It's an average horror remake.
It's so much more obvious when you did it like I do it, like back to back, the way I did it. So now I'm like hearing lines being repeated, but they're being repeated all wrong and shit. Like I'm like,
just switched up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All right, well, let me address the chat, man. You guys have been awesome. I really fucking appreciate you guys being here. Bobby up in this bitch. Two Gun, I love you, brother. Thank you for being here. Evan was in here earlier. I was thinking about going on a rant and act like all these crazy people are in here. President Obama was in here. Nick from Comic Culture, close enough. And I'm just pretending like there was way more people in here. Rogue Collective was up here as well. Appreciate you. And Blood Splatter Chatter, he was in here as well, man. Next week here on Blood Splatter Chatter, pretty excited about this one. Gonna be a shit ton of fun getting together with Robbie from Pop Culture Philosophers and Perry for his first time on Blood Splatter Chatter for Child's Play, the original. So I'm stoked about that, man. What do you guys got going on, man? Phable, I know you're doing a show this Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. What you got going on, brother?
Sir, Lynk and Phable and his amazing friends with Nick Comic Culture returns this Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern. We will have the lovely ladies of Melanin and Manga, Inja Binja and Sheena. Talk about what they got going on. They're trying to start this new thing with manga and stuff like that. So always cool to see ladies in comic books and then ladies who like anime. That's pretty dope. You know what I mean? So can't wait to hang out with them. So yeah, and whatever the PCP army got going on, I might sneak up in there once or twice.
Hell yeah, man. Links to Phable and Link's IGs and YouTube channel for Phable down below. Link, you got anything going on this week, brother?
I'm just gonna riff what Phable said. You'll see me here or there on some PCP oriented stuff. Never too far away.
Hell's mother trucking, yeah. So everybody in the chat, man, appreciate you. Hit the like button on your way out. Make sure you are subbed up to the channel. Everybody watching on the rewind, same to you, man. I appreciate you. Comment down below. It helps out the channel a lot. Drop a station. Say something nice about me. Tell me my haircut looks good. Anything. Just put something down below. It helps the algorithm. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot.
Good shot. Okay, he's dead. Let's go get him. That's another one for the farm.
Goodbye, my angel. I hope you have a good time. But of course you will.